Can you remember a time in your life, maybe recently, maybe long ago, when you felt completely lost, not in the dramatic sense, just that quiet inner feeling of, I don't know which way I'm meant to go. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if I'm getting this right. Most of us know that feeling intimately, and underneath it, there's often a deeper assumption, one we rarely say out loud. It goes something like, I feel like I was put on this earth without a map. I think I'm supposed to figure this out all on my own. It seems like everybody else knows what they're doing and I don't. If you ever felt anything like that, even a faint version of it, I want to tell you something that is going to change how you see your whole life. You see, there is a map, there is a guidance system. It's always been there. You were not dropped here without one. The universe is not careless like that. You came with an inbuilt navigation system, an inbuilt GPS that has quietly been active your whole life, even if you didn't know it was there, even if you couldn't hear it, even when you ignored it for decades. That GPS is the designer. The designer is the deeper intelligence within you, the part that holds the bigger picture, the part that designed this learning environment, this exact set of circumstances you're living through, the part that already knows where you're heading and how to get there. It's not above you. It's not outside of you. It's not a separate being watching you from a distance. It is you, the deepest version of you, your higher self, your inner being, your soul, whatever language lands for you. And the designer has been with you the entire time. Every quiet pull you responded to or ignored, every hunch that turned out to be right, every meeting that felt like it was meant to happen, every door that closed, or even better, every door that opened. That was the designer. That was the GPS at work. Even though the GPS has always been on, most of us are not raised to know how to listen to it. We are raised in a world that tells us to use logic, to analyze, to work harder, to push through, to trust evidence over inner knowing, to override what we feel in favor of what makes sense or what is logical. By the time we're adults, we've spent decades disconnecting from the very signal that was always trying to guide us. That signal has not gone anywhere. We've just stopped hearing it. We've learned to trust the noise instead. So life feels mapless, not because there's no map, but because we're not plugged in. Abraham Hicks describes this beautifully with a metaphor that I love. Imagine someone vacuuming the house. They're working really hard, pushing the vacuum back and forth, moving the furniture out the way, sweating, exerting themselves, putting in real effort. And at the end, they realize the vacuum was never plugged in. All that effort, very little effectiveness. That is what it feels like when you take action without first connecting to your inner guidance, to your designer. The good news, and this is important, is that plugging in is simple. The system is already installed. The connection is already there. You just have to remember how to switch it on. And we're going to spend the rest of this module learning exactly how. Before we get to the practical part, I want you to understand what kind of intelligence the designer actually has access to. Because once you know what's on the other side of the line, listening becomes much easier. The designer sees the whole game. It holds the blueprint of your desires, including the ones you can't yet fully articulate. It holds the deeper reasons you are here, the themes your soul came to experience. It includes the learning arc of your life, why certain things keep showing up. It includes the timing, the patterns, the environments that support your expansion. And it includes all the pathways available to you. Here's something I want you to really take in. The designer doesn't design one path. It designs thousands, even millions of possible pathways for you. If you turn left, that path exists. If you turn right, that one exists too. If you take a detour, fall into difficulty, or choose the hardest route, that one is designed as well. Nothing is outside the design. And the designer knows the path of least resistance. It knows which route will feel easier, which one will involve less struggle, which one will bring more flow, more support, more meaning. It's not withholding that path from you. It's offering it to you constantly through the GPS and waiting for you to listen. That is what plugging in unlocks. Not control, not perfection, just access to the route the designer already knows is the best route for you. And to understand the designer, we first need to talk about the level of the game it operates from. Let me address the language. The terms 3D, or third dimension, and 5D, or fifth dimension, get thrown around a lot in spiritual circles, often in ways that feel a bit abstract or even a bit woo-woo. I want to ground them for you because they're not abstract at all. They're practical. They describe two very different ways your reality can be organized and two very different ways you can be operating inside it. You don't need to believe anything mystical to use this framework. You just need to be willing to notice the difference between these two states in your own life, because once you notice it, you can never unnotice it. Third dimensional reality is the world as it appears to your five senses. It's the world of what is, the world of evidence, of cause and effect, of past and present, of what can be measured, proven, and predicted. It's the world your avatar was born into and conditioned by. 3D, or third dimensional reality, has a very particular flavor. It is shaped by duality, good or bad, right or wrong, success or failure, win or lose. It is shaped by separation, me and you, us and them, what's mine and what isn't. Effort and struggle, the belief that anything worth having must be earned through hard work. Hierarchy and comparison, measuring yourself against others, ranking, judging. And of course, limits. What is so-called realistic? What is so-called possible for someone like me? The rules of third dimensional reality are familiar to all of us. Be realistic. Don't expect too much. Don't stand out. Don't trust what you can't see or prove. Don't risk what you already have. The avatar absorbs these rules early because at the level of third dimensional reality, fitting in equals safety. Standing out feels dangerous. Wanting more is labeled selfish or delusional. Belonging often requires shrinking. Third dimensional reality is not wrong. It's the entry level of the game. It's where the avatar begins. It's the field on which the experience of being human takes place. But it's not the only level. And it's not the level the designer operates from. The designer operates from a fifth dimensional reality. And fifth dimensional reality is not a different physical space. It's a different organizing principle. If third dimensional reality is the world of what is, what already exists, what you can see and touch and prove, then fifth dimensional reality is the world of what is possible. It is the field of all possibilities your designer has already laid out. It's the level of the game where alignment matters more than effort, where trust and coherence replaces control, where things unfold with intelligent timing, where creation feels magical rather than forced. It's the field of possibilities your designer has already laid out. You see, your designer knows all the possible paths that will lead you to your highest joy and to the highest expression of your soul plan. Fifth dimensional reality has a different flavor. There's possibility instead of limitation, ease instead of struggle, trust instead of control, flow instead of force, knowing instead of figuring it out, divine timing instead of urgency. In fifth dimensional reality, the question is never, is it possible? The question is, am I willing to be the person who can hold this? Abraham Hicks calls it your vortex, the energetic version of you that has already aligned with everything you want. Your work is not to drag that manifestation into third dimension. Your work is to become a vibrational match to the version of you that already lives in the vortex. Then, whatever is in the vortex falls into your experience as a natural byproduct of being a vibrational match to the vortex. Bashar talks about this in terms of frequency. He says that every reality you could possibly experience already exists. You're not creating reality from scratch. You're tuning into it. You're matching a frequency. The version of your life where everything you desire already exists somewhere in the field of possibility. Your work is not to build it. Your work is to become its match. Neville Goddard pointed to the same thing when he said, "Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Live in the end. Become, in your imagination, in your sense of self, in your inner conviction, the person who already has it. From that state, the corresponding outer reality must follow. Florence Scovel Shinn called it the spoken word, the decree of identity. I am, as the most powerful sentence you can speak, because it tells the universe what to confirm. From all of these people, it may be different language, but it's the same teaching. There is a level of the game where what you want already exists, and you reach it not by working harder in third dimension, but becoming the person who belongs there, who exists already in the fifth dimension. Here is the part most people miss. You cannot reach fifth dimension by pushing harder in third dimension. You can't reach fifth dimension by stacking more affirmations on top of an avatar that is still gripped by fear. You cannot reach fifth dimension by white-knuckling positive thinking. You cannot reach fifth dimension by force. The avatar, on its own, can only operate within third dimension. That is its design. That is its level. Asking the avatar to manifest fifth dimensional outcomes from inside third dimensional struggle is like asking a character inside a video game to redesign the game they're playing. They don't have access to that level of the system. They don't have access to that coding. That is exactly why law of attraction can feel so frustrating. Most people try to apply it from completely inside the avatar. They learn the technique. They try to feel better. They try to think the right thoughts. They do all of this from within the very identity that is creating the current third dimensional experience. The player is what allows you to step out of that identification. We covered that in Module 3. But the player on its own is not enough either. The player can witness. The player can pause. The player can choose. But what is the player choosing? What is it tuning to? The player needs a signal to tune to, and that signal comes from the designer. This is the full system. The designer holds the map, the bigger picture, the level of possibility, the version of you who already has what you want, the map of all the different pathways to what it is you want to achieve. The player reads the map, receives the signal, hears the guidance, chooses the direction, and the avatar moves in response, takes the inspired action, lives in the body, experiences the unfolding. When all three are working together, you have alignment, not just as a concept, as a felt, lived state. The designer signals, the player listens, and the avatar moves. This is when the system is coherent. That coherence is what the rest of this course is teaching you to live in. I want to leave you with one image to hold on to for the rest of this module. Your life is not a single playing field. It is a multi-level game. You entered at third dimension, the default level. That is where the avatar was conditioned, where the rules of be realistic and don't expect too much were installed, where the gravity of the familiar pulls you back to base camp. But there are higher levels, and the levels above third dimension are not somewhere you go after you die, or somewhere you reach after years of meditation in a cave. They are available to you now, in this body, in this life, in the middle of your ordinary day. You access them by plugging into the part of you that was always operating from those levels, the designer.